So again, good afternoon, everybody. Vaqar Ahmed is with us, is leading the second event of the Global ConnectED initiative. Dear Vaqar, it's such a pleasure to have you on board here. A big welcome to those who will connect live today and those who will be watching this video after that. That will be published on our YouTube channel. Vaqar, so it's impossible to introduce you as we discussed, but I'll try. So you are obviously a senior researcher with Oxford Policy Management, but you also work with the Economist, Rotary, plenty of collaborations worldwide. And the crucial bit is that obviously you have a huge insight on how sustainability and business and investment could happen through growing economies, and obviously in what way this is affecting and it is of relevance for our IT graduates, both at TMUC in Pakistan, University of Hertfordshire in England, and worldwide, really. So that said, Vaqar, I'd leave you the stage, and usual pattern applies, around 30 minutes or so presentation, but we are flexible. And then obviously a round of questions and answers for everybody. Yeah, Vaqar, you are on mute, so.
Thank you, Vito. It's such a pleasure to be here once again, and thank you for this invitation. I think when you and I last discussed the series of these talks that we wanted to curate, one of the key ideas was really to blend the concepts which are being discussed at the cusp of sustainability, financial sector, and IT industry. I think all of these three, I would say, segments are working on their own priorities. However, the way future is shaping the world in which we're going to live, all three aspects have to come together, and it has to be a marriage that works for everyone, basically. So which means that, yes, you would have industries in infrastructure led by public sector or private sector, which will be interfacing with the AI led by the IT and computing industry. But really, we need to answer the question that where do they all come together? And this is where I wanted to sort of begin with, and let me take you through the main sort of problem statement that we want to work with.
I want to prevent
as I
will ask you, and my second expert will reply.
Okay, let me mute. Okay, yes. So really, we need to, as I was saying, make the triple helix work, which is the sustainability part, the financial part, and of course the IT industry. So the way I call it the climate, capital, and code, and it has to be this triple helix which has to work together. So of course, sustainability and / climate, of course, these are the physical risks that we all confront now, and transition risks are now, of course, material to asset values. Then you have the financial part, which is global private investment flowing towards assets and economies, and one hopes that as time passes, these will be transition-ready assets and economies. And then you have the digital systems, which are, of course, probably the only way to make sustainability measurable, verifiable, and ultimately investable as well. So the problem statement that we want to work with today really is that how do growing economies attract finance and funding without locking into carbon-intensive assets? That is the simple problem that we want to move forward with. Now, this is a business proposition. We should not forget. This is almost. The allocation which is going to take place is huge. So already you are noticing that global sustainable investments had reached almost $30 trillion back in 2022, the valuation that we now have from GSIA. And this represents a significant portion of professionally managed assets. And then you have investments in renewable energy, which are growing at an annual rate of 17%. In 2023, Bloomberg has totaled them around almost $2 trillion, increasing at a rate of 17%. And the cost of capital gap, companies with strong ESG performance, they're seeing a demonstrable cost capital advantage, often 100 basis points lower on debt issuances. So this is a business case for moving towards sustainability. You have almost $2 trillion in fossil fuel assets, which could remain stranded by 2030 in a net zero scenario, which has been pointed out by the Carbon Tracker Initiative. So this is the business opportunity towards which the world is moving, and trying to sort of navigate the challenge of how do we grow economies based upon the new matrix of sustainability. So you have the addition paradox, which is that, yes, we need to grow the economies, expand energy access, at the same time avoiding the carbon-intensive path. You have the investment competition. We're competing for capital with mature markets that have established green infrastructure and policy certainty, and this competition. And you have the infrastructure deficit, which is a business proposition that is often the lack of robust data around infrastructure, around grid capacity needed to support verifiable, sustainable investments. And then there's a risk of locking in, because if you get locked into, let's say, long-term coal-fired plants, inefficient industrial parks, you really run the risk where your capital won't be able to move when the renewable assets become much more cheaper. And there would be companies around who, after 2030, may not be ready to even insure these assets. So you lose the insurance as well. So there are a couple of things that are helping the transition from the fossil fuel-based investment which we have seen, and towards greater sustainability. One, of course, used to be the old model. We used to call this a model led by corporate social responsibility, CSR, which was more of a peripheral function that companies had to do it by law or through moral ground of their own. It was focused on reporting and philanthropy, and it wasn't tied to the core business strategy. And the new model contradicts this. The new model says that, no, we have to talk about investable sustainability which is embedded in core business strategy of firms. And this is about having transition plans, risk management, product innovation, and supply chain resilience. This is the transition from a CSR-led thinking towards an investable sustainability thinking, on which now you have a lot of literature which guides us that investable sustainability is now measured by science-based target, internal carbon pricing mechanism, and digital verification. There's huge demand of HR in all these three areas: setting of targets, carbon pricing, and digital verification. And the missing link really is data. technology as an enabler of investability is only possible if you have the data. And this is the investor's dilemma, where an investor comes to you as a government or as a large MNC, and the investor says that I want to invest in greener production in a growing economy, but how do I verify its energy use? How do I track its supply chain emissions? How do I know it will be resilient on climate impacts? Because they get scores, they get brownie points in this, which they can trade on global markets. And if I or the market is not possessing the data to answer this question by the investor, it slows down the entire transformation. So digital infrastructure solves this problem because digital infrastructure is providing the kind of transparency, accuracy, and auditability that this investor is demanding. There'll be three core functions. One, of course, to measure, which is carbon accounting. Second is to verify, which is independent audit data trails, which have to be usually updated annually. But then more importantly, operationalizing the sustainability part in your procurement systems, in your logistics systems, in your finance systems, HR, and other aspects. And all this is possible if we come around and understand that data, the way we used to understand it, has changed. Now, there are tools which, of course, are going to guide how digital systems will operationalize sustainability. And any digital toolkit for this transition towards cleaner systems, towards sustainability, will have three or four things. One is the internal carbon pricing, in which enterprise software that places a shadow price on carbon is there. It influences investment decisions, like choosing a lower carbon logistics route or a supplier. And this is already being used by around 3,000 companies globally. Second is the emissions tracking platform, which are cloud-based systems. Companies like Salesforce, Persephone, they are automating the collection, calculation, and reporting of these emissions. And you have many smaller companies as well who are entering into this market. Third is the supply chain analytics, where we continue to hear about AI and machine learning, which is being used to map supply chains, identify high emissions or high risk nodes. Fourthly, you have the grid integrated data infrastructure, in which you are bringing in smart meters, IoT sensors, grid measurement software that would enable demand response, optimize energy use, and facilitate the integration of distributed renewable energy. All of this constitute a digital toolkit for transition, which of course companies would need to adopt. And from digital warehousing, we need to move toward what we call a grid asset. The data center has to be reimagined as the energy hub. These data centers that we are talking about are energy intensive. They are projected to consume 8 to 10% of global electricity within this decade by 2030. And we have an opportunity here. Data centers can be reconceptualized as integrated green energy hubs. The faster somebody greens it, that's the biggest opportunity for them, because countries will latch onto this. And key capabilities out there, one is the demand response, that you'll have software that can reduce power draw during grid peaks, supporting grid stability, but also the waste heat recovery, much required by these data centers, which capture heat from the server to warm buildings, pools, even district heating networks. These are all the possibilities coming out of large green data centers. You are looking at 24/7 carbon-free energy matching, where usage of software to match every hour of electricity consumption with locally sourced carbon-free energy really moves you beyond the annual renewable energy credits. This is really far beyond the way we used to think about energy credits 5 years ago. You're also looking at verifying the impact in a high trust market, because traditionally the problem has been that voluntary carbon markets have had this issue of double counting, lack of transparency, questionable project integrity, who is signing off these projects, who's underwriting them. And there was a lot of trust deficit in the market to take on such projects. And the solution really is these blockchain-enabled platforms which provide that temper-proof, transparent ledger for carbon credits, which nobody can temper. You can't just go back and change the mechanics of it. And just to put it in simple English, how is it working? Each credit here is a token, which provides a unique auditable history. And then you have smart contracts that automate the retirement of these credits, which means that you are preventing double spending. And then you have data coming from the already in place sensors, for example, coming from a reforestation project that can be automatically linked to the credit. And there's both internal and external validation. So the outcome that you really have is an increased trust in the system, which wasn't there in voluntary carbon markets prior to this. You have liquidity, you have scalability, and this is enabling the capital to flow to high impact projects in growing economies. Now, again, going back to the question that what are investors looking for? So 2 years back, we used to use the term that investors are looking for bankable pipeline of projects. Now we have refined that, and now we say that investors are looking for transition-ready pipeline. And this new diligence, due diligence that defines the transition-ready capabilities. What this means in simple English is that investors are now assessing firms on their digital capability of sustainability, and they're asking you key questions when they come to you. Does the firm have a robust digital system for measuring and managing emissions? Can the firms model the financial impact of different carbon pricing scenarios? Is there supply chain data transparency, which is auditable? Is there physical infrastructure in place, which is designed for grid interactivity and resilience? So this is a whole new competitive moat, as we call it, margin, optimization of operations, cost advantage, the HR which is required. It's a whole different competitive moat in which firms who really move in quickly will have that first mover advantage going forward. Let's bring this into what this means for the government, private sector, startups, mature firms. So what does all this mean for governments and regulators? The governments and regulators have to come forward to provide the policy signal for private capital. Governments will have to mandate disclosure, which means implement standards aligned with the ISSB, International Sustainability Standards Board, for consistent and comparable data. Governments would facilitate in building digital and energy infrastructure where market fails. So you have to bring in public investment into smart grids, public EV charging, national carbon accounting platforms. This is sovereign infrastructure, which can be used by any of the parties later on. Design of carbon markets. You need to have very competitive design here, which create clear, transparent frameworks for both compliance and voluntary markets. And this ultimately translates into what we call digital registries. In countries like Pakistan, for example, these digital registries are maintained at the Ministry of Climate Change. And I'm sure this is the same case in other emerging markets as well. And then fourthly, governments would need to use and position PFM, public finance management, to de-risk the private investment. You have to blend public and private capital to de-risk the first of a kind green infrastructure project, attracting institutional investors to take risk in this area. And governments could provide sovereign guarantees, government could engage in public-private partnerships, anything that de-risks the private investors' investments. And usually what we have seen in countries, the first private sector investor will usually be the commercial bank in your own country. They would have the liquidity to come in first. Second, what do the private sector and private sector associations and industry bodies must do? Now, if you have Chamber of Commerce, if you're looking at large private sector sector associations, they would end up moving from compliance to competitive advantage. It's not just about achieving compliance now. You'll have to embed sustainability in your core strategy. If, for example, you want to break in from country A to country B, you need to demonstrate that you are more than compliance. You are about embedding sustainability. Sustainability is no more a department or a desk in your firm. It is a P&L issue. And you have to tie it with executive compensation, with the board KPIs, with management KPIs, so that everybody is responsible for transitioning these plan milestones. Private sector will need to invest in digital systems. You'll have to move beyond spreadsheets. You invest in integrated platforms for carbon accounting, supply chain transparency, and energy management. We see a huge opportunity for universities out there to train existing private sector HR into this. People who really don't have time to sort of log off from their office responsibilities, they would require smart programs in carbon accounting, supply chain transparency, green energy management, so that they can do this on the job. Third is setting of norms. Industrial associations will need to develop sector-specific transition pathways. What this means is that you can't have a transition pathway which is same for auto sector and cement sector or construction materials. Each one of these associations would have their own distinct sector pathways, and digital data standards would need to enable comparability and drive collective action. And finally, build transition-ready business models that really ask, how does our product or service help a customer to decarbonize? Because many of your customers would be intermediaries in the production process. They may not be retail customers. So you also have to help your customers decarbonize as well. The third lens talks about universities, as I was saying. What must the faculties do, and this is the curriculum imperative, where you have the universities and university regulatory bodies that need to redesign for an interdisciplinary world that we are looking at. So while, of course, universities know that they have to move beyond sustainability being taught as a siloed subject, let's say under environmental sciences or under geography. And these curriculums now need to integrate across disciplines. Firstly, in computer sciences, where you have modules on software design power, energy efficient coding, blockchain for supply chains. Then in business and finance case, where you have modules on ESG investment, carbon accounting standards, engineering, under which you have modules on grid interactive infrastructure and circular economy design. And then once you have these curriculums in place, you move towards more strengthened industry collaboration, where you bring in the practitioners from climate tech firms, investment funds, and corporates to co-design and co-deliver these modules. Something, of course, which we are doing today. And I remember you had a lecture with Mr. Ahmed Qadir as well previously. This is what I think has been an excellent effort by Vito and colleagues. And you follow this through with a focus on applied and systems-based learning, where we end up using case studies, live data sets, and projects that solve genuine industry problems. So you bring in industry experts that define the problem statement with us, and we do the live data sets and live problem solving with them. The fourth lens is for the students, particularly those who are facing a world where the pivot towards interdisciplinarity cannot be done overnight. We know we have to move towards interdisciplinarity, but the challenge for today's student is, how fast does this happen? So the clarity on future careers, students would need to see that clear link between their studies, what they are passing, and really a thriving career path. So ESG data engineer needs to have a clear concept as a software developer, how they can work with those developers, we continue to talk about the new demands for skills in programming, cloud computing, data analytics, but all of these apply to sustainability contexts. That's something that we need to embed. Exposure to real-world tools where students work with platforms like Salesforce, Net Zero Cloud, or Persephone, just three examples that, of course, I have come across, but I'm sure there are other open source energy modeling tools as well, with which our students should be working. And all of this really gives them that global relevance that is transferable. So a carbon accounting system designed for a UK firm should have principles that apply for a firm in Nairobi, for example. So carbon accounting won't change. The standards are the same. All that we are doing is that we are allowing the students to see through end to end that as an ESG data engineer dealing with programming, analytics, applying it to sustainability context, working with platforms like Salesforce, what does the carbon accounting lead to? I think that's the end-to-end path that we need to show them. Now, there are opportunities as I see it for our graduates. Their job titles are changing in the market. You do a very cursory analysis of LinkedIn positions which have been advertised, and you do a scrapping of them. The new job titles are ESG data engineer, highly in demand. People who can build pipelines and platforms to collect data on these sustainability projects. Second, we are looking at rising jobs for climate tech developers who really can assist the code that enables carbon trading, faster carbon trading, energy management, and traceability of supply chain. Thirdly, we are looking at sustainable system architects who can design the overall structure of data systems for energy efficiency, for grid integration, and for minimizing the environmental impact. At a fourth level, you're looking at jobs which are of carbon accountant. The title of the jobs is carbon accountant, who are using software analytics to verify corporate and product carbon footprints. And then finally, you are seeing an increased demand for jobs which are titled as reg tech or regulatory tech specialists who can build systems that automate compliance with evolving disclosure regulations. And then I also want to touch upon those of the graduates, for example, who would come out and maybe not be part of a thriving job market, but are a part of startups who may end up in incubation platforms for startups of their own. For startups, there's a massive new market in climate tech and ESG solutions. We are looking at new startups in both innovation side as well as access to capital side. So on the innovation side, we have carbon tracking, green fintech, energy tech platforms, circular economy marketplace. And on the access to finance side, we are looking at a booming market for venture capital and blended finance, which can focus on green energy impact. This is not to say that mature firms don't have a market out there. Mature firms are already testing their competitive advantage. They have the first mover advantage. They're looking at lower cost of capital, a higher brand trust and operational efficiency. They are also best placed for risk mitigation, which means that protection for regulatory shocks, carbon border taxes, and dealing with physical climate risks. I can tell you with an example of my own, for the past 2 months, we have been receiving, well, if you minus this last month of this conflict in the Middle East, before that. So if you talk about January and February, we had a standing demand from Bahrain to provide for experts in carbon tracking in auditing of green investments in sectors such as textile industry, retail industry, construction industries. And believe you me, we haven't been able to provide them with the kind of CVs which were required from us, or the numbers in the large number in which the CVs were required. So whenever people come to us and say that AI is taking away my jobs, the jobs in these areas are still there, and we are unable to fulfill the supply. Which means that universities will also have to gear up for producing these kinds of supply for the market. I'm mindful of the time, so I'll just quickly wind this up with the last 2 or 3 slides. So the message really out there for the tech stewardship is that coding may not be in high demand, but you have to build it now. So as most of the tech firms are saying that, yes, we require a coder, but a large part of coding can be done by Claude or ChatGPT. So what we require is not just a coder, but a system builder. Now, what they're asking is that you move beyond being a coder to becoming a steward of tech systems. That will determine, of course, the future of platforms, which are economic platforms or environmental platforms. So a builder of systems would need to compute the carbon orchestration, grid interactive infrastructure design, high fidelity data systems. So you may have a coding background, but you need to now go that extra mile where you understand that these are the 3 systems that I need to build now for an outcome that allows growing economies to, or growing companies to, decouple growth from environmental harm and attract global green capital. So it's really the bottom line is you have to build, not just code now. And this is my last slide. I think most of the tech cycles have shown us that the future was not inherited. All the tech cycles that we have seen were entirely built on new ideas, And one of the things that we see that digital systems are no longer support functions. They are the infrastructure for sustainability, and digital systems are what we call the investable new economy. And the quality of a firm or a country's digital infrastructure will increasingly determine its ability to attract capital, build resilience, and thrive. And the need for that talent, which is interdisciplinary, will be growing. We don't even know, we cannot even imagine the kind of HR which will be required a year from now or 5 years from now. And this really opens up that opportunity for everyone, government, academia, faculty, students, to really come together under one umbrella, which I call the community of practice. So I cannot be successful in this domain alone. I need to walk with a community of practice that we can build and hold together to really move forward. So these were some ideas on this subject. I thank you for your time and attention. And it's back to you, Vito.
Vaqar, thank you so much for yet another so refreshing and inspiring and informative session. You really you made me crying really, because with this initiative, with the Global ConnectED initiative, we are exactly trying to do what you stated in your last slide. Ahmed Kadir also is here. Hi, Ahmed. Together, the 3 of us, we had this initial conversation some time ago, and now we are building on it. The idea is really to allow our students across the 2 countries, but the truth is that worldwide, they need to go beyond the traditional technical boundaries and borders and make sense. Ask the famous question, why, not just how. And the truth is that through also your talk, Vaqar, is fantastic because they really appreciate in what way now, obviously, the overall economic international landscape is changing, and how our technical know-how could become more valuable for supporting the change. It is now time really to embrace sustainability in a stronger way. I really like at the beginning when you mentioned that there's a kind of strong shift from the CSR, corporate social responsibility, into this new dimension, which really is the way forward, and technology is there to support this. We need to embrace more. I will keep talking forever, but I really want. I got also in my mind so many questions, so I need to bite my lips for the moment because I really like Ghani and Ahmed if they have any questions first. And anybody else. I don't know if at the moment it's 4 of us. So yeah. So Ghani.
Apart from thanking Dr. Vaqar here for the eye-opening and horizon-opening presentation here, I have to thank you, Vito, for inviting me here in this meeting because it is the best thing that you could have done. Dr. Vaqar, you just, with your presentation, you just shaped my ideas how I can improve the MSc program for the next 5 to 10 years. Okay, and then the direction that we have to go to in order not to be just attractive to students, but to be attractive to the industry as well, where the industry is going, and how we match our academic programs with the direction that industry is going towards. And it is very important. And you know very well that very often academics are trenched in their in their academic styles, and then they don't want to change, and then they say, no, this is academic teaching, and then we don't care too much about what industry does because industry changes every 3 or 4 years, but we have to match what the industry is doing and then where the industry is going. And especially I liked about the what you said, that coders are not in demand anymore, okay, because there are other programs that can do coding for us now. We need people with vision that can build systems, that can solve problems. And I have a question that how can we share this? Because it's not just the IT and computing people that are involved with this, even the business part. So then I don't know how this will be propagated to the business school as well, to our business school. Can we share this video and presentation with our business
Ghani,
school as well?
So Global ConnectED is an initiative that we started slowly in the last few months, and is growing. We have a LinkedIn group, and we have a YouTube channel. So obviously we keep growing and try to expand. At the moment, just to give you an idea, the first talk that Ahmed gave last month, we already have 82 views. We have 9 subscribers to the YouTube channel. The numbers are not massive yet, but slowly they are increasing.
Yeah.
Really, the challenge here is that, well, the 4 of us here, we know, okay? So we need to ensure that our students, especially those who come from a technical background or technological background, need to understand is that technology is part of the equation, it's not the whole equation. So we need to expand the view. And this is for many reasons, from employability purposes, as Vaqar rightly said, the opportunities are there, etc. But also the social responsibility and what that entails from both the industrial sector, but also from the public sector, etc. There was a crucial keyword that I like to reuse from both, actually, Ahmed's presentation last month and from Vaqar's presentation today, which is trust. How we ensure we generate an overall society based on a trusted infrastructure, transparent and functional for ensuring the economy benefits out of it. So really we are now kind of translating what otherwise would have been a kind of an abstract concept, right? You know, responsibility and professional code, etc., into something which is much more impactful and much more relevant for our students, for the practitioners in IT, in AI, in STEM, in engineering, and obviously this is a call that, as you said, Ghani, it calls for obviously the economists, for politicians. The challenges ahead are incredible, together with the opportunities. So we need to ensure that we are, you know, as the technical people ourselves and our students. For those who might watch this video later on, so Ghani Nashi is the program leader for the MSc in Computer Science by the University of Hertfordshire. 3,600 students. It's a little university in itself, our Master in Computer Science. So we, through the master and obviously through all other programs, undergraduate, postgraduate, across the School of Spectra, and not only SPECS, obviously. SPECS stands for School of Physics, Engineering, and Computer Science. But all the schools and also the collaboration that we have with the Department of Computing at TMUC in Pakistan, and the Transnational Education Partnership that we have established now for over a decade with Pakistan. We are really aiming at ensuring that our technical students, the graduates, will really start thinking in a broader and more integrated manner about what they do and how they can do it. I don't want to, sorry, I just gave you this information about the global connected, and then I went over the board. Vaqar.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I think Ghani has a very important point. While of course we are advocating this for IT departments, their students, curriculum bodies, but the work actually has to start from the economics and business studies people, because they have to put in place a business case for doing all this, what the IT and other sectoral industries would be doing. So I think this is a very important observation, and business schools should actually be the starting point for this sort of thinking.
Thank you. Thank you. But you also gave us those skills that our students need to have in, as what you said, in a changing employment market. Okay, so then different skills are now required from our students in order to penetrate the employment market. It's not like before. As you said, a coder is, we can teach coding, but it is not going to get them very far if they don't have the commercial capabilities and then strategic, and to embrace the strategic thinking, and to build systems for those strategic and global solutions. So the IoT, cloud, and AI and machine learning, okay, will be at the core of our program, will continue to be at the core of our program. But we need to change even the way that how we teach, because you said something very, very important there, that all this, everything that we teach, it has to be applied to the context of sustainability. And that is, I can tell you that it is lacking, not only in us, but in many universities, the application of that in a business context, in a global context, is lacking. And then that has to change. It's a mentality change. It's a paradigm shift, the way that we think as academics in how we prepare the next cohort of employers for this changing global market. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much. So I think I totally agree with this, you know, and one of the things that sort of worries me is that not all actors are coming together as expediently as they should be. I think all the actors that I've named in this space, in the ecosystem, may that be regulators, may that be the private sector associations at a sector level, may that be the academia or skills institutions out there, all of them are really going deep into their domains, but not talking enough with each other. Now, who's going to play that role in the ecosystem? In an ideal environment, it should be the government's own innovation body or R&D body that should be bringing together all these 4 or 5 segments together. Because we don't operate in an ideal world, so what we are seeing is that very, very large MNCs who are able to do this, let's say the large tech companies who are able to do this, they have their own systems where they are inviting the former government or regulatory sector employees, former C-suite officials, former, let's say, IT people or current IT people, and they have these large innovation systems embedded within the firm who are able to do this kind of brainstorming. Now, what this is giving rise to, really, it's giving rise to an inequitable research, inequitable thought process, and ultimately operationalization and commercialization of all this thought process. Because you would have firms who would have this ability, countries who would have this ability, but then you'd have firms and countries who may not have this ability for maybe 50 or 60 more years to pull together this kind of brain power, you know. So what this ecosystem, what I'm saying is that not only this ecosystem is required at a national level, and ideally, yes, governments should do it, it's also required at regional and global level. Otherwise, we're looking at a very, very inequitable access to whatever we are suggesting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very true. Very true. Ahmed, have you got any, from the policy making perspective, have you got any question or any contribution you want to do to this interesting conversation?
I think Dr. Vaqar has, in his usual brilliant fashion, brought such a interesting topic to the fore that ever since I was following his slides and listening to him speak, I realized maybe 10 years ago none of these positions existed. So the whole labor market seems to have gone a radical shift right in front of our eyes. So since 2008, it's been capital, it's been financial regulation, it's been, let's say, anti-money laundering or regulations that affect market power, competition, antitrust, legal frameworks, etc. But, climate change and sustainability is just something which has just either been percolating in the background and we didn't pay much attention to it because the more usual measurable things were easier to deal with. But now it seems to be a runaway bus that's heading on a collision course with so many other systems. And listening to some of the terminology that Dr. Vaqar used, I realized that most of it, I was struggling to define it for myself, vis-a-vis the perspective of my own career experience and my own understanding of how policy making goes, how economic structures are put into place, how countries compete, and how they integrate into the global marketplace. And I think now we need an entirely new barometer of measurement as to what makes a country competitive, what makes it's not just competition law or antitrust or financial regulation or FATF required principles. I think there's a whole new perspective of viewing the adaptability of any country to play a part, not just within its national boundaries, but within the international marketplace. And unfortunately, my understanding of, let's say, policy making in Pakistan is that we're not having the right discussion. In the last week of January, I was in the board directors training program that that's a requirement. If you want to become a board director here, you need to go through this course. And the ESG module was like 3 hours, but none of the presentations touched upon anything that Dr. Vaqar said. We talked about IT, we talked about cybersecurity, the need for strong IT systems and everything, and why ESG is important, etc. But none of it was integrated in a way that anybody could understand how this impacts on governance of a company and how it and by a larger standard, the governance, economic governance of a country when it's taking part in international trade. So there is, I think, a lot of things to be discussed over here, but where do we start? What's the first point? What's the triggering point of a conversation? And again, Dr. Vaqar said the government has to take the lead, but I'm struggling to sort of mapping our government, whatever limited knowledge I have of it, who's the right focal point, which is the right government body to discuss this, who's the national champion who's going to take this discussion forward, who's really going to roll up their sleeves and push for this. So it's a whole new challenging scenario. And I'm really upset that he's now ruined my weekend, and I'll be thinking about this all day long, and I'll be losing sleep at night. So but it's interesting. I think it's I think you've fired the first warning shot as to we need to have a whole new perspective on what sustainability and international trade is. And I think this is a very good discussion that we've triggered off today. So thank you, Vito, and thank you, Dr. Vaqar, and Gani, good to meet you also. And I think your computer students have a very key role into understanding how AI and IT and systems now have to be sort of linked together rather than standalone enterprises, but need to be linked together for a much greater and broader purpose. Yeah. So challenging days, but we'll try to help the best we can.
It is challenging, but the risk management, as Dr. Vaqar actually emphasized, that has to be integrated in our program, and not only the IoT and the cybersecurity, but the system design based on the new requirement that the industry has, okay, system building. And actually this helps us even in the big problem that the universities have nowadays with the large language models such as ChatGPT, because due to this ChatGPT and DeepSeek, for example, the old ways of how we assess the students actually are not valid anymore, because ChatGPT can do many things, and so then we need to move to the actual how we, as Dr. Vaqar said, how we build the systems. And then it doesn't matter that whatever they use in order to code it, they can use ChatGPT, and doesn't matter, but we test their high level of thinking in the designing systems that solve business problems, and that has to change. And I'm glad that I was in this meeting today, and I saw the presentation, because it gives me scope to actually make those necessary changes, and then to be backed up by actually what the industry is saying to us. Okay, thank you.
I think
one more point, since we were discussing virtual competition and the role of the algorithm in doing anti-competitive behavior, and then listening to Gani, and I realized if everybody starts using ChatGPT or DeepSeek to code, and the algorithm puts into place something which can be seen as a form of automatic collusion in terms of sustainability, then you might have a whole new competition law mess on your hands.
Very true.
How do you adapt the regulatory framework to accommodate the algorithm from entirely new perspective?
Exactly, but that is the problem that actually we should actually make the students face. Okay, that they can use ChatGPT, but actually it creates a different type of issues. But it is an era that we have to change as academics, and our mentality, our thinking,
and regulators also,
and regulators, yes, but because the key word in Dr. Vaqar's presentation, for example, one of the key words was compliance. And so how we comply with all the regulations, and how we know, for example, that the supply chain that is working the way that we that we are working, and then the transparency actually is part of the compliance as well, because if you ensure transparency, then you know what is happening, and you know that you are complying with all the regulations. And then this system, that is what they provide, the system that we want the students and the next designers of the system to do is to solve these problems that the industry has. Then knowing where the industry is going, actually, it is very important for us academics, and that's why I'm glad that I was part of this presentation today. You were Dr. Vaqar, you were talking, and then I was typing my ideas. Okay. And in the other program review that we're going to make, so the how to shape the program according to what you said.
We need to add, Gani, something else, which is actually we invest more in the digital ledgers and blockchain, because actually the tool of the blockchain is a fantastic tool that holds responsibility across the board. It's public, so government and things cannot in any way or form tamper with it, and they need to. It holds responsible. So the blockchain system is actually incredible for operationalizing and embedding anything we do, including sustainability, in our operations. More than sometimes, we discussed this last time with Ahmed. The fact that if you have a policy which is detached from the operation, etc., it's no longer working, because obviously AI and technology now is there. But I believe Vaqar actually put a fantastic nail on the argument here. I mean, the technology, we need to keep building and investing in it, but technology is already there. So now the tools, the challenge, I believe, is now to exploit it and to make it more good practice. So yeah, Vaqar.
No, absolutely. I think your last point is so important, that technology is already there. And how does one fine-tune it so that it works with the humans, it works for human needs, it is able to work with us safely and on our priorities? I think this is what the future will be all about, how to work with the machines. And the entire AI industry that we are looking at today is focused on this one question: how we work with the machines and vice versa. And then at a regulatory level, as Mr. Ahmed Kader said, regulators would be defining that what are the limits. How much information are we providing to the machines, and how much the machines should deliver for us, or no-go areas, as I call them, So I think this is probably the next 2 to 3 years of our thinking and working with the AI.
Yeah, I totally agree. A final remark, because I'm conscious of time, and I want to leave a final word for Vaqar to conclude this meeting here. But I was so impressed also by the ability of Vaqar to highlight the opportunities there. And in last instance, our goal here is to provide our students with extra opportunity to think, to expose themselves, and for us academics also having this kind of applied dimension. Let me underline, this is really an epistemological need. Okay, we are living in a world in which what we are teaching, it doesn't matter if it is as theoretical as fluidodynamics, or as practical as databases. Things have to be contextualized in the right perspective, in the right context, in the right frameworks. And this is exactly the kind of awareness we want to give our students and our graduates and professionals, and whoever is patient enough to join us and listen to this kind of conversation that we're having. Vaqar, a final word for you before leaving our audience.
So I think one of my wish would really be that in our next round of or next episode under this discussion, Global Connected, we should invite an industry leader. I mean, we have heard the regulator perspective because Mr. Ahmed Kader is here. You and of course Gani are here, so we've heard the academic perspective. I've brought in again more of a policy come academic perspective, if I can say that humbly. But I think the next episode should be with an industry leader. We really need to know how the tech people are thinking about sustainability, investable sustainability, embedding sustainability in tech systems. Because if you're talking about thousands of green data centers across the world, I mean, this is I mean, as I said, this is really a huge investment opportunity. They know this, they're working on this. We just need to know what steps they're working on. So I think that would be my sort of parting wish. And I think we can work offline and bring somebody into this discussion to sort of have a more of an industry perspective here as well.
Vaqar, 100%. I'm not sure whether it will be the next episode or one of the next episodes, but
Yes.
definitely. Yeah. And again, what can I say, Vaqar, Ahmed also here. I can just reiterate my gratitude for the voluntary service that you're doing here. Across our countries, but to be fair, on the internet means this is public to everybody. This kind of conversation really aim at providing sense and dimension and perspective to what we are doing in our respective areas and professions. And I really hope that our students will take the time to sit down, to listen, to take note, to challenge, to contact us. Everybody here is on LinkedIn. We are keen to listen, to engage. We want our students to be proactive, to contact us with questions, with projects, with ideas. At the same time, of course, Global Connected is aiming at bringing here more brains that could share with us their views, their perspective, their experience. And definitely, I take on board, Vaqar, your advice. So if not the next one, it might even be the next one. Definitely, somebody from industry that address the same topics that we have addressed here. Okay, so how industry is actually reacting and acting against this. That would be absolutely fantastic. So, thank you very much, Vaqar, again. Thank you, Ghani, Ahmed, as usual. Ahmed, you are our pillar. Thank you for coming here as well. And I hope our students will find this useful the same way we did anyway. So thank you again. And obviously I will circulate offline the summaries and things. And I hope to see you all soon again. Until then, take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
very
much.
much.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.